Well, his next coaching staff does. I tell Adam pretty much everything. He's one of my best friends, so.
There you go. Max isn't just a bunch of doo-doo. You're a bunch of doo-doo, Max. Whatever. That's his problem.
No, tell Joe Pro too, because Joe Pro thinks it's funny.
Okay. 7 minutes.
Anybody? Everybody ready?
Yep.
Contention 1 is the resolutional analysis. Subpoint A is the resolution. The United States federal government should legalize the sale, distribution, and production and use of cannabis. The United States federal government should legalize the sale, distribution, and production use of cannabis. The background, the first argument is that it's legal recreationally in several states, but not medicinally in some, but it's not legal in terms of federal law. That's the plan. It's the resolution. The United States federal government should legalize the sale, distribution, production, and use of cannabis. Any questions? Solvency. The first argument is that the United States federal government is key. The little A point is that state action is slow and happens only in the places where it's least needed. You can look at the examples of Oregon and Washington and Colorado's being instances of where it's been legalized recreationally, but generally the places where it's most needed in terms of a variety of different things, which we'll get into case, are the places where it is least likely to happen. The second argument is that banking regulations happen at a federal level. You can look at like the NCUA, the National Credit Union Association, the FDIC, are all federal institutions, and all of those regulations are made at federal level, which means all of these are like all of these kind of the bankings are limited in that sense. It's a particular important aspect when you look to the cannabis industry in general. Thus, advantage 1 is finances, the economy. The ace of point is uniqueness. The first argument is in the status quo. The cannabis industry does not have access to financial services. The little a's, you can look at how specifically dispensaries can't accept debit and credit cards as certain forms of payments unless they go through extreme workarounds in order to do so. The little b points, you look at how specifically most of these institutions, because they are primarily cash-based as a result of that, have to employ their employees in cash. This has a couple of implications. One, it means like they're having to like hire security guards to transfer, to like walk their employees to their car as they're receiving their cash payments, because they're receiving a full week's payment, week or 2 week payment in cash. But the little C point is you can also look at how they don't have access to various business loans and lines of credit as a result of that. Additionally, we'd also say how like insurance companies are not able to offer insurances to those institutions because they're all operate under the federal level. E is the lead, or the third argument is that it makes cannabis shops targets of illegal activity. You look at how specifically these businesses are robbed or always targeted because of their cash-based businesses, because they have a lot of cash there to steal as a result of that. The next argument is that there's been a significant decrease in research and development in the status quo because of the lack of capital and loans, because they don't have the ability to take out credit against whatever they do have, any collateral they have. Don't have the ability to make loans to increase research and development, to try and find faster, better ways to increase production or safer ways to do so. And they're constantly trying to have to save all of the money they do have as a result, because they don't have any ability to actually access loans if they did need them. But the next argument is that the lack of interstate commerce kills the cannabis industry. You look at the fact that like, although both Oregon and Washington both have legalized marijuana, they're not able to move marijuana across state lines. It's a good indication why businesses are significantly limited in terms of the amount of research they're able to have and the way their ability to operate with businesses. The liens. The first argument is that having it legal under a federal level resolves all these issues. You look at the fact that now banking regulations, insurance regulations are all able to accept cannabis in terms of an industry, which means they're actually able to access some of those loans and businesses that they weren't able to in the past. The next argument means we're able to resolve that. Then C is the internal links. The first argument is that without the development of new medicine, cannabis is limited in its potential. The little 8 points, you look to how it's specifically key and it's been noted to be useful to combat cancer and helpful against opioid addiction, which we'll get to a little later. But the next argument is we'd say that under these guidelines, that farming is no longer done in the dark. This is done this is because of a couple reasons. One, that means they actually have the ability to gain access to like business insurance, and because of that, they're having to, insurance companies will help them to higher standards of production and safety in terms of actually receiving those insurances. You look to like the reason we don't have buildings collapse is because buildings have earthquake insurance. It's a good indication as to why they'll have to change their practices to be better sound in those issues. But we did the next argument under here is we'd argue that these kind of, because of that, because that lack of insurance, there have been a lot of inefficiencies in the way cannabis is raised in the status quo, and the plan would be able to resolve these impacts. The one argument here is death. We'd say medical marijuana helps save lives, and how it's been critical to combating cancer, help against opioid addiction. And we're going to get to that actually now. So this advantage 2 is opioids. The ACE point is uniqueness. The first argument is that the United States is in the midst of an opioid epidemic right now. The little 8 points you looked at like various places across the country, many people are dying from addiction to opioids. When we say opioids, it's not just simply opium, but it's also oxycodone, hydrocodone, Vicodin, more commonly known, or various amounts of synthetics such as Dilaudid, Dropana, etc. But the second argument is that this is traditionally happening in mostly red states where it's least likely to happen because of the lack of availability to cannabis is one, which means people are always having to push towards opioids as a means to actually like help treat their kind of pain addiction or the kind of chronic pain they have. Ease the links. The first argument is that cannabis use can help ease the transition from opioid addiction. We looked at the fact that various studies cite that cannabis is a non-addictive drug, the reason why various different people who were formerly addicts of opiates are able to transition there and to help help their body transition. It's also the little B under here is that it's specifically good for opioid withdrawals, for those people who are withdrawing from opioid, which is a very physically addictive drug. It helps them transition from that process to maybe eventually the sobriety or to something else. The second argument is that it will replace opioid as a traditional painkiller in the first place, meaning that doctors are able to prescribe it, which is important because then people actually have it replace pain in that capacity, or people can self-medicate themselves. See the internal links. The first argument is that opioids are becoming increasingly more dangerous. The little 8 points you looked at how synthetic opioids created in China are now starting to be moved, such as like Dilaudid, fentanyl, different drugs, etc., are starting to be moved to closer markets where black tar heroin has been traditionally most popular. Our argument is that it's key to legalizing on a federal level now. That way we can have marijuana help assist those who otherwise would be affected through the combination of like these two various drugs. And the impact is that opioid addiction kills people, several million people a year by heroin use or other drugs.
Just be a case. Hey! Woo! That's all I'm allowed to talk about.
This is a weird topic to constrain.
No, I'm better sitting now.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Right? This is a weird topic to constrain case complaints. I wanted like something really, I wanted a deep European topic.
Well, that was not. Okay.
Wouldn't you love to have to debate one of my advantages about European politics? Would that be fun to have to give a case response
That
to?
would be so much fun. I would hate my life. That'd be very difficult.
That's one of my favorite things, are advantage and disadvantage about politics of other countries.
I love, last year I ran Italian politics a lot.
Okay. Good.
What politics?
Italian politics.
There were some key elections going on.
Okay. Everybody good?
Yep.
I'm gonna try to do the best I can of classifying things, because I'm a little messy with kids, but you know, we'll give it a shot. Small overview to start this debate. Both of their impacts on their advantages are about dying. If we can show that legalizing marijuana will actually increase the death rate in the United States, then we win the round. First on the solvency. First on solvency proper, you talk about how the let's see, state action will You talk about some argument about how it's legalized in the states that need it the least, but actually, if you look to Colorado, we use a lot of our marijuana funds that we get for our local schools. You can look to District 60, District 70 here in Pueblo that are actually almost were taken over by the federal government because they were failing in terms of their regulations. And so if this were, and the state money that was allowed for because of marijuana was able to go in and help save these schools, but if you would legalize it on a federal level, then that means that these schools would be just shit out of luck, and that means that the federal government would be able to take those. On the second salty point on making of federal regulations, obviously these federal regulations didn't help in the 2008 recession. This led to bad banking, and this led to the recession in the first place. So obviously the federal government does not have the answers to every single problem that you're going to be able to solve for. So keeping the status quo is going to be more preferable. Next on some just like case stuff, so if you want to write it next to or sheet paper or whatever is better for you. First is one big point here is there's no precedent in the prison system for retroactive relief of any charges that have been put against. So people that have been charged for marijuana possession are not able to reach retroactive to retract those charges that have already been pressed on them because of this crime. So that means that these people are still going to be in prison, and because in Trump land right now, Trump likes private prisons, and so if it's legalized on a federal level, that means that these prisons are going to have stricter laws on other things. So it's going to spill over so that they can make an increase of a margin profit. Let's see. The second one is that decriminalization allows medical users to gain access to drugs in states that are not legal. So that marijuana is not legal in. So you're going to want to prefer the status quo because it is more advantageous to medical users in all 50 states instead of using the federal. Because the federal government is on the move to decriminalize it, and so legalizing it was actually going to be really bad for these medical users. The third argument is that in Colorado alone, the increases of DUI has risen by 3%. So this is going to, if you legalize it on a federal level, this is going to increase the amount of traffic accidents and fatal car accidents that are going to be happening on the roads. And so this is going to lead to more death, which your case is trying to solve for. The fourth argument here is that in Trump land, any new regulation is going to trade off with something that is going to be taken away. This could hurt something like the EPA. He's already planning to take away Planned Parenthood, so this could hurt the EPA, and this could hurt the thing on the fight on climate change, because this is a trend that whenever Trump creates a new regulation, something else has to be taken away because of it. The fifth argument is that the federal government is worse for regulation and is bad for local populations. Like the Colorado example with schools, they're not going to be able to allocate how to effectively spend this money. So that means that this is going to be money going back into the federal government's pocket. It's not going to be directly benefiting the states as it is right now in the status quo. The sixth argument under this is that expulsion rates have increased by 30% because they found weed in schools. So this is bad for this is bad for inside the education system. So if you legalize it federally, there's going to be less regulations for that. What number am I on? Seven. The seventh argument is that homeless shelters in Colorado say 30% of their newcomers are due to the marijuana addiction. So this, the legalization of marijuana. So this is increasing homelessness across. This will increase homelessness across the United States because of the job regulations. Jobs still have to screen for marijuana testing. Therefore, not allowing people to have access to jobs because they're going to choose marijuana over wanting to do to go for a job because it's legalized and it gives people the pass to do this. The eighth argument is that this is a stigma. Young people under the age of 12 see the status quo, the common status quo, as going to marijuana to treat certain issues than alcoholism or alcohol or anything like that. So we're teaching young kids in the mind that marijuana is the way to go, and this is going to be really bad for their development. Let's see. The ninth argument here is that states. I already said that. Okay. Okay. The ninth argument here is that if the dispensaries don't meet the regulations or the grades that they need to in order to sell their marijuana in their stores, that means that this goes to the black markets, and currently with the black markets, they are smaller and more localized black markets than the larger black markets that you would see in the movies and things like that. And if you do the federal regulation, this is going to be even harder to regulate, and so that means that there's going to be a potential for increase of more crime in regions. Going on to Advantage 1, sorry. On Advantage 1, just go down to the big one that they're trying to go for here is that this level of federal regulation is going to be able to solve anything, and this is going to be bad for research. But a lot of the research, especially in Colorado right now, CSU Pueblo is actually doing cannabis research here on campus. So a lot of research has been done in the terms of cannabis is not through private industries but through academia. So the status quo is going to be able to solve that to your advantage because this is research is already happening to help people with addiction via marijuana. You can go to CSU Pueblo as an example. Oh, give me a second. So that means that the status quo is going to be able to solve that for your impacts faster because you said it's death because this research helps people go through addictions, and that's the same on Advantage 2. We are able to solve that for this because academia is already doing that. On the internal link, really quick, you say down at the bottom, lack of insurance. You say something about lack of insurance leads to inefficiencies, but you have no warrant as to why this is true. So that means that you have no warrant as to why the federal government has been, obviously in the past, the federal government has been unsuccessful in banking regulation and insurance regulations, and so there's no reason why they would be helpful in marijuana. Yeah. Yeah, their uniqueness has nothing to do with their impact. They start talking about all of these different small, minor, micro impacts in the uniqueness level, but it has nothing to do with their impact scenario, which is death in terms of addictions. That's the same thing on their Advantage 2. They're just putting the same impact on their Advantage 2 as their Advantage 1, and they're not going to be able to solve that because their uniqueness doesn't tell the story of how they get to the impact. On Advantage 2, on the link scenario, in the link scenario, you talk about how this will be able to replace painkillers and people will want to self-medicate instead, but hospitals are not allowed to use marijuana in terms of helping people with pain or addictions like that. So the people that need it the most in hospitals are not even allowed to use marijuana as a treatment for this. On the internal link, extend across the black market argument, you talk about how this, the opioids are dangerous because they lead to a synthetic thing, but this will lead to smaller black markets, which will be even more hard to regulate if you were to legalize this. So you're not able to solve that for your impacts because you don't actually help the people that need it the most, and this is actually going to be really bad for a lot of the population that we talked about.
We go solvency dump, become opiate. All right, anyone not ready? First, they talk about how the states will specifically be taxed in the status quo, which is the reason why it's better for schools. However, they ignore the fact that states and the federal government can tax a particular product, which is the reason why this doesn't apply. Next, they talk about the regulations caused the 2008 crisis. There's no warrant on this. This is one reason you're not going to buy it. The second argument is because the regulations of 2008 were not the reason. It was the way that the industry set up particular loaning practices, which were loopholes in the regulation, which means more regulation would have solved this, deterred this argument. Next, going on to the dump, they say that there's no precedent for releasing people. However, Colorado is looking at a way to actually release people in the status quo, and even if this is false, this does not negate our impacts, which is the reason why you should evaluate the debate. The next argument is that they say it's better for states when it comes to medication because they can tailor to particular people. However, what we're saying is these particular people are still subject to raids, still subject to arrest, and given the federal government, which means that the states can still regulate marijuana in their own ways, just like tobacco laws, where in some states it's 19 like in Alabama or 21 like in California. However, there's legal tobacco age in general, so this argument doesn't apply. Next, instead of talk about how we need to essentially the status quo is moving to decriminalize. We're saying decriminalize is not enough due to fines and still that it's illegal to use certain substances, which means they don't garner access to opiates, to the opiate advantage, which is the reason why they don't solve.
It also doesn't solve the banking advantage.
Yeah, it also doesn't solve the banking advantage, which is the reason why you're not going to prefer. Next, they talk about how DUIs are up at 3% in Colorado. Guess what? Marijuana is a DUI, not a DUI, which means this doesn't apply. Next, they talk about how this trades off with EPA or something. One was no warrant on this. There's no specific analysis on what specific administration will be cut. Also, the EPA is already being cut in the status quo, which means that their only attempted impact does not matter, and we've already pulled out the Paris Accords, which means it does not matter. And the states, in particular, cities and states are already doing things to combat this, which means that there's already status quo solved for this term. Next, they say that the federal is worse because it doesn't doesn't benefit the states. However, again, they can see you want to classify the argument that essentially states and the federal government tax. Next, they talk about how expulsion rates are up in schools, but we say that this is partially due to opiates as well as opiates do this, as well as the fact that children with parents who are on opiates are would probably be more likely to be expelled or suspended out of school because they cannot be able to properly attend class for a couple of reasons. The first is either they don't have the same resources to go to class, they don't have the same sort of support, which means that they would do worse in class, which means that this is a turn here. Next, talk about homelessness is going up because of marijuana testing. Again, this would be solved with federal regulation because the only reason those are in place is because it's national corporations that have these laws, which means that the plan falls back for this. Also, they can simply not do it like people do in Colorado or Washington or Oregon right now to still get jobs. So this means this doesn't apply. Empirics proof. Next, going on to talk about how they're teaching kids like essentially weed is cool and good. This has already been happening in the status quo with opiates, and we talk about why this is particularly worse because we see that these are being handed out essentially like candy, going to hospitals to solve for any little issue, which means that this is arguably worse. But even then, we don't say that weed is being treated as a good thing, but rather it's being treated as a medication, which is distinctly different. They don't prove any sort of differential here, but I'm going to do that for you. Essentially, we can look at examples like such in Germany and then the EU in general, where alcohol is treated with much higher respect due to the fact that it's being being brought in at a much younger age and being treated differently, which means that we saw back to this impact. Next, to talk about local black markets get worse. We're going to say no for a couple of different reasons. Probably a small gang of people selling marijuana is a lot better than, I don't know, like the whole cartel beheading people. Not only that, but going to the next argument is going to be that local black markets are probably easy to break up for a couple of reasons, because law enforcement can direct more direct action, which means that there's not as many places for the black markets to go, so like through acts of guerrilla warfare. The third argument for black markets is going to be the argument that simply no one's going to go to the black market if it's already legal on the regular market, which means they don't have due to a cost-benefit analysis, is much more of a cost to actually go through a black market than a regular market. So for these reasons, this stands. Next one on to the econ. They simply say that states are doing research and development now, but we're saying research and development on a national scale is down, and what we're saying is we solve back this, because imagine if it was legal on a federal scale, all these state schools would be researching marijuana, not just CSU, which is the reason why this particularly solves back. Next, you're going to want to extend our uniqueness scenario, which talks about no financing the status quo. This is particularly bad because we talk about how it's going to lead these businesses, it's going to restrict them greatly, as well as it means that they're forced cash businesses, which are more susceptible to robbery, which is going to be necessarily its own impact on its own. And next, they talk about they also can see the point here, which is that there's no interstate, which limits the econ of individual states, which is particularly bad because it means that they want their like education advantage or their education term. They don't even get that in a world where there's no interstate econ, which they also can see the limits business. And next on, they can see the links going on to the internal link scenario. They simply say there's no warranty inefficiency, but they can see the analysis that talks specifically without regulation. That the farming method is inefficient because it's not the best possible farming method because there's no set way how to do it. Next, on the impacts, they talk about the style of the status quo, but yet you have no reason to. And the status quo doesn't solve for a couple of reasons. First, is the federal grants immunity to generally if the federal government is going to institute policy, it's going to at least release a lot of criminals in the federal court, which is a particularly good reason why we saw back, which means they didn't get this under any sort of version. Next, Obama did something similar like this under an executive order when it comes to releasing violent offenders, which means it sets the precedent. And third is you can look to the prohibition, which is a good example of this, and which means that these are all reasons why specifically the U.S. is key, as well as the status quo can't solve, even if states do it individually. You can also cross-apply the analysis from earlier. Yeah.
On internal links, having better practices means safer mail.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. I threw out impacts, my bad. And next, going back real quick to the internal link scenario, essentially having better practices means not only is it safer because there's a regulation overall, but it also means that we avoid things like people spiking marijuana with particular other substances in order to create an addiction or not call falling, an addiction and a falling to that particular dealer, which is the reason why this is another impact why we have better practices and FDA approval is going to lead to better healthcare and better medicine. Yeah, what's up?
So by legalizing it, you're also saying that you're going to do FDA approval as well.
No, I'm saying that like most drugs are FDA approved, and we can see that's most likely what's going to happen when it's successful.
What we're saying is that new products have to be scaled by the FDA.
What we're saying is they'll have access to get insurance, and insurance companies alone, if not the FDA, will hold them to a higher standard.
Is that good for that advantage?
Also talk about environmental designation.
Oh yeah. We also create better farming practices, which is going to be better for environmental degradation because essentially if we focus on current farming methods, when it comes to cannabis, it can be particularly damaging to the environment depending on what pesticides are used, where you grow it, and how you grow it, which means we're solving for a back for the environment impact. Next, going on to opiates. They say simply hospitals won't use marijuana. Yeah, this isn't the status quo. We're talking about on a federal system. There's a higher chance that they will, which means that they have solves. Next, going on. They say that smaller black markets. Again, the cross play are 4 reasons why specifically black markets are going to work, and we have a couple. We're going to add an impact onto the bottom of this. We simply don't say death, but however, addiction is its own form of destruction, which is probably going to be the biggest impact around because when we talk about opiate addiction, it creates a cycle where people go into poverty as well as sustain their habit as well as just essentially the people around them isolating themselves, which creates the social alienation, which is particularly harmful to mental health, which can cause death, but also a form of disillusionment with society around them. So these are all reasons why this is going to be the biggest impact. And so I don't know that. We want.
Just extend the process.
Oh yeah, okay. Then on opiates, I guess I'll do some extensions by that. First is you're going to want to extend back the links, which is going to be point 1, 2, 3, which talks specifically about how it solves the back for the opiates because it would be used for painkillers as well, which is a transition point from opiates over to weed or to being clean, as well as the fact that it can help with withdrawal symptoms, which is probably a huge impact around because it can not only help with withdrawal symptoms for marijuana or for like specifically from opiates, but it can also help withdrawal symptoms or like or systems with people in chronic diseases and extreme pain, such as let's just say cancer. And as well as going on to the interlinks, they can see the part that opiates are extremely dangerous and that the synthetics from China are extremely dangerous and addictive, which means that potentially this is necessary to stop that. That should be.
Okay. Same word. This will be interesting.
Take your time, take your time.
Everybody ready? Okay, first go ahead and extend across my partner's articulation of the fact that the negative only has to prove that by legalizing, if they're going to be essentially increasing the death rate, this is going to matter extensively when we go onto the turn page. All right, go ahead and go down to their solvency. So essentially all that they're arguing here is that the states and the federal government is like the federal government can do it better, but they completely mishandled this articulation at the point that the Colorado is using the money that they get from marijuana to fund their public school systems. Like the federal government is no longer going to be able to advocate for this because they're going to be saying that they're going to be taking the money into their own pocket and allocate it towards other things such as like the military and the fact that Trump wants to increase military spending. So essentially like that, their entire mishandling that entire argument. So extend that across. All that they say on the next articulation is that there's no warrant here. So go ahead and extend across that didn't help in the recession. Okay, so go on to the turn page. So the biggest arguments that we're going to be going here for today is the first one about there's no precedent in the prison system. So essentially, if this plan were to pass today, this is not going to do anything. As the fact that like Trump likes private prisons and it's going to increase the margin profit. All that they said here is that there's a way to release in the status quo. And essentially, like when their plan happens, like this is not going to do anything. Go on down to their next articulation. Go on down to the next argument that we're essentially going for is that the 30% increase in homelessness, which is therefore increasing the poverty, this is where my partner's articulation of her overview mattered because like all we have to prove is that by legalizing it, we're now increasing how many people die. Poverty kills more people in the United States than it does anything else. Like it kills more people than the Nazi genocide, it kills more people than a nuclear war. At that point, the poverty is killing that many more people, and the fact that the homeless rate has increased 30% due to the fact that people are now using marijuana and therefore spending all of their money on marijuana. They don't want to go to work because of the fact that they are essentially like addicted to it. They're now in these homeless shelters. They don't have a job. These children, like with their parents, like they don't have a place to live anymore. They're now put in poverty, which is now going to cause them to die because they can't afford their basic necessities. So at that point, their plan is actually causing more people to die than they're actually fixing it. Go on down to the next argument that we're going for is that dispensary, okay. So essentially all that they're saying is that on the dispensary argument is that they're going to go into the black market here and that the small gang selling it is better than the cartel. If the cartel can't sell marijuana because it's legal, they're going to go to hardcore drugs like the opioids that they're talking about, and now poor people are gaining access to these essentially and more painkillers and more of these hardcore drugs. That essentially that turns their entire case because it's now causing their impacts next to happen instead of actually solving for it because of the fact that now these cartels are going to be selling more of those hardcore drugs like the opioids as opposed to marijuana. Yeah?
Quick question.
They say too
Okay,
that
a second.
they say too that no one's gonna go to the black market if it's legalized. This again, this will incentivize other types of drugs to go to the black market and underage people, because you have to be a certain age to buy marijuana. Underage people.
You have to be a certain age to buy marijuana, so essentially these underage people are now going to go into other areas such as the black market to gain access to marijuana because they can't gain access to it on the street. So now you're not only increasing the cartels, you're essentially increasing the cartels' presence in overall because of the fact that now they're going to more hardcore drugs, but now underage kids are now going to buy more marijuana or whatever because of the fact they can't buy it anywhere else. What was your question?
Yeah, so how exactly does legalizing marijuana lead to increasing rates of homelessness?
Because of the fact that we specifically have a statistic that say 30% in Colorado had homeless shelters had a 30% increase because people are now spending all of their money on marijuana, or instead of going to work, they're staying at home smoking marijuana and whatnot. That's the statistic. That's yeah. Okay, so it's now going on to their advantage one. I'd like to point out something. Their uniqueness literally has nothing to do with their death impact. All their uniqueness is talking about is the fact that they're talking about economics, and if they're talking about significant decrease in development, and there's no ways to increase production. Nowhere in there is it talking about opioids and trying to transition people away from opioids by using marijuana. That literally has nothing to do with what they're talking about. And on the link, they send across their link. They're saying that they resolve all of these issues. Okay, cool. They resolve all of these issues, but they're not essentially doing anything what their impact is talking about. Go ahead and send across my partner's articulation that schools and academia are already doing research and that the quo solves faster. People in the status quo are now putting more money out there for this research because of the fact that on the federal government is not regulating this. The state government is regulating this, which means state to state can have different regulations on research. State to state can be researching different mechanisms. So therefore, the federal government doesn't have any control of that. When the federal government steps in, places are less likely to research all of this kind of stuff because of the regulations the federal government is going to put on it. The SWO is going to solve faster at the point that the SWO is already on the path to decriminalizing it in the status quo, which is essentially solves for anything that they're the SWO is just going to solve faster. You had something to add?
Oh no, you're good. You got it.
Okay, go on down to their internal link scenario. Again, their internal link essentially literally has nothing to do with their impact scenario here. Not that all that they bring up is that the farming method is bad for the environment and whatnot. This doesn't change with the legalization. The way that the farming is going to happen, it's going to happen post-legalization, essentially it's going to be less contained because people are going to be more out in the open doing it and whatnot. Anything to add there?
Yeah, just essentially their story doesn't make sense.
Uniqueness
doesn't really.
Their story doesn't make sense when we're flowing from an econ uniqueness point to a link that says resolves all these issues and then development on internal links. And then we get to the impacts of death, and apparently out of their MG speech they have an environment impact that didn't come out in the first PM, so we don't even know where that's coming from. Essentially they're saying that the quo doesn't solve. Go ahead and apply both terms that I put on here already, is that they are going to actually be increasing death because of the fact they're now increasing the amount of people in poverty, and the fact that they are now increasing the amount of the power of the cartels and the drugs that people are accessing from these cartels. So essentially they're just causing more of this to happen. Going on to their advantage too. Okay, so essentially all that they're saying here, going down to the link scenario, is that they're saying that they're trying to ease the transition. Specifically that replacing with the painkillers is that hospitals, extended contact partners articulation, hospitals can't use this in hospitals where painkillers are most drastically needed. And furthermore, children who have cancer or whatnot and have other diseases that marijuana would be used for can't gain access to this because of the fact that they're children. So anybody that could potentially need all of this stuff can't gain access to it. Yeah.
And all they say is, oh yeah, they probably will if we.
Yeah, they say that there's a higher chance that they will. There is no guarantee that this is going to happen. There is a reason that this is not allowed in hospitals is because of the fact that there's more of if you're smoking it, there's now secondhand smoke and all that kind of problems that go along with that, and the fact that if you put in edibles, that there's more likely a chance that children who aren't using it gain access to this. Unless you're constantly monitoring what is happening to this marijuana, that is the reason why this is not used in hospitals. So therefore, they can't promise that that's going to happen. Like, there's no guarantee here. They don't have anything going for their case.
And we agree that opioid addiction is shitty, but your plan doesn't solve that.
Yeah, their plan doesn't solve that. Like, their plan just makes death worse. Going down to their impact level, and that they then bring up like the poverty and like how they're isolating themselves. Cross-employment application is already on poverty. Is that their plan essentially causes more of it? So you're going to be voting for that because that's the biggest like impact in the round today. At the point that all of our arguments turn their case, they literally have nothing going for them.
Okay, so it would be, I'm gonna do the case, I'm gonna do a little tiny overview, doesn't matter. Then the case terms, advantage 2, advantage 1. Good?
Yep.
Coming out of the negatives, the affirmatives MG came out a lot of probabilities. Oh yeah, if we pass this, it'll probably be able to solve your case turn. Oh yeah, if we pass this, it'll probably be able to solve our advantage. But if you have no guarantees post the plan that any of this is going to be able to be solved after legalizing marijuana in all 50 states, that means you're going to be voting negative on the risk that the plan is not going to be able to solve at least one of the case turns, or it's not going to be able to solve its advantage, and I'm going to get into specifics on that here. So going on to the case turns. Again, extend across the first case turn I put down that there's no precedent right now in the status quo for retroactive relief of any charges. They say that Colorado is looking to do this, but if today the plan were to pass, and would this retroactive relief be in place? No, it would not. So that means there is a risk that it is going to affect it, and Colorado is not going to be able to pass this, and this means that these prisoners are going to be have even more harder regulations on them in prison. This is going to be one of the reasons why they're not going to be able to solve back, because they did not answer it, because this is not guaranteed right now in the status quo if they were to pass the plan. It is not included in their plan. Also, extend across the articulation that my partner made about how the homeless rate in Colorado has increased 30% in homeless shelters due to marijuana use. This immediately impacts what they were trying to solve for, which is death and dehumanization. She gave a good articulation about how poverty is the #1 killer in America, and if we are to increase the homeless rate, this means this will increase poverty and people not able to get resources. This is going to be what we are going for, and why they are not going to be able to solve back with their plan and their advantages, because there's a risk that this is going to increase death and homelessness in the United States. Another one to go to that they did not answer very well. The only argument they said is that the states and federal governments can put taxes on this product, but when the federal government is going to take over the entire way that the tax system is going to be regulated on these specific on this, that means this is not going to be going directly to the schools. We make articulation in the LOC about how District 60 and 70 would have gone down without this tax revenue from the schools. So that means that this is going to be going to the federal government's pockets instead of helping these local populations, which they did not answer. That the federal government regulations is going to be worse for local populations, and this has directly to do with the homeless argument. This is not going to be able to be helped via the plan. So, and also another argument I'm going to go for is this dispensary argument. They say that no one's going to go to the black market, but you look to underage populations that are not going to be able to meet this age limit. This is going to increase the amount of people, and this is going to allow for more hardcore drugs, because these smaller black markets are going to look to something that will reach them more profit. So that means that it's going to be a risk of you are going to harm people that you're trying to help on your advantages. On advantage 2. All they say here is that probably this is going to happen post the plan, but hospitals, as she stated, are not allowed to use marijuana as a treatment mechanism. So that means you're not going to be able to solve back for any opioid addictions through our current medical system. So that means people will have to go self-medicate themselves, and there's no guarantee that this is going to be able to solve. Advantage 2, they are not able to solve their advantage, so that means that they have no ground here in the debate. On advantage 1. Again, this goes off faster because research is already happening for cannabis in academia, and we are making leaps and bounds in terms of research in academia, so we're able to solve back that faster. Look, they have a lot of probabilities, but they cannot solve with the plan because of the holes that they left in the case terms.
It's gonna be the case turns, the like research schools argument, and then the advantage two.
Is the school's argument on the?
It's on
you vote
advantage.
on
It's on advantage one.
Okay.
So that's just the one argument.
I floated on the case terms.
Okay.
But
Okay. Yeah.
Just want to make sure I'm in the right place. You good?
Conceding that the status quo doesn't solve for those people moving to marijuana away from opioid addiction always means we're going to be preferring the affirmative in this debate, because we are the fastest internal link to one, being able to resolve those people suffering from addiction now, to our opponents have conceded is a dehumanizing condition that does destroy, that does hurt and destroy people, but second, they've conceded that it leads to numerous amounts of death in terms of heroin addiction, synthetic opioids, as well as those prescribed by the doctor. Go to their case terms now. The one argument they make here is that there's no retroactive way for us currently within the United States to actually free people from marijuana. But my partner makes a couple of good answers to this. First, that we're already seeing the status quo, we're finding ways to do so, but additionally, my partner makes the argument that we're the faster internal link to changing those kind of arguments, but also that we're making sure new people, more people, don't go to prison as a result of this. This is a good indication why, even if we're not able to solve for everybody in prisons now, we're still preventing people from going there, which is a reason we're going to prefer.
The articulation that you're making sure that more people don't go to prisons because of the you're legalizing marijuana, I believe that's a new articulation.
It's also a completely irrelevant one, because that was clearly deep into an advantage they didn't read.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would probably have been a better way of answering this. Say, this would have been a really interesting argument for reading prison's advantage. Next.
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway, so yes, that is new, but no, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Go ahead.
The main case term they're going for in this debate is how specifically that homelessness has increased allegedly by 30% in the state of Colorado past the passage of marijuana. My partner makes a lot of good responses to this that go conceded. One, we say that this is more a direct result of the opioid epidemic taking place across the country rather than marijuana, that they don't highlight any specific instance why it's marijuana doing so. But second, that we're saying that even in we're saying that it's mainly an issue of the opioid epidemic. But the next argument and the case term they go for is try and say how the cartel is now going to move towards opioids and other more harder drugs as a result of it. But this argument is one, new in the MO, and it's two, non-unique. The cartels are already there selling black tar heroin. That's where you buy those kinds of drugs from, is those kinds of individuals. Which means there's no risk of that ever increasing by the affirmative. But the next argument they make, another new one in the MO, is that underage users will now go to the black market in terms of doing so. We don't do that for alcohol. We have somebody who's 21 buy it for us if we're under 21. No risk of this offense ever taking place in next. The only other offense they have is that it's going to hurt schools in particular states that have it legalized. Austin provides a lot of good analysis that one, letting research be done on a federal level is better in terms of developing safe practices, but also that we can still, for the Colorado school, the school district here locally, that excise taxes still exist and are still able to resolve these claims. That's why like a pack of cigarettes, it's like $10 in Oregon, it's only like $5 here, which is awesome. Like, it's the reason why these things happen. There's no risk of that offense happening. Their thesis of the negative is that this is all about saving lives, right? Go to advantage two, and that's where you're going to see that the affirmative is winning this debate here today. They have conceded a couple of linked arguments. One, that cannabis use can help ease transition from opioid addiction. They can see that opioid addiction kills people, so it's only a question of whether we can help people transition away from this. Conceding this linked argument is critical, but the only argument they make on our second linked argument is that hospitals can't use this. Austin provides a really simple answer for this. That's because it's illegal in the status quo. Legalizing it, one, is a faster internal link to ever making this possible, and two, the status quo is never going to be able to resolve this claim. Which only means it's a question of the affirmative, and the affirmative alone to be able to test it. On to the internal links. Their only argument here is black markets, but they don't answer our specific nuanced scenario. What we currently see is circumstances where Dilaudid and fentanyl and various synthetic opioids that are being created in China are starting to move towards the West Coast, where traditionally black tar heroin and oxycodone and other prescription drugs that we can get from doctors are being prescribed. This is a reason why specifically the affirmative is needed now, because we need to stop those drugs from reaching the West Coast to the traditional black tar heroin users to make sure we can help them ease transition away from opioid addiction if they do get affected by it, or to help prevent that in the first place by actually no longer prescribing people pain medication. These are all arguments that were conceded out of the PMC, and the reason we're going to be preferring the affirmative. Do some impact calculus here. The whole thesis of the negative is that poverty is the largest killer, but they haven't answered our arguments that say there are alternative causes to the statistic they provide in this debate. They also haven't done any impact defense on the fact that opioid addiction, one, is a dehumanizing condition, but second, kills people. Roughly 23 million people per year, or some insane number around that, not just related to heroin, but also to traditional prescription drugs. Though you only look at the affirmative and affirmative loan to be able to resolve these claims, and for these reasons, affirmative.
It didn't have an impact to weigh against it.
Yeah, so let's.
If I could do something, but I'm not back.
PMC. You need to explain the insurance argument. You need to talk about how decreasing costs is important to increase access to this drug, which you're saying is good. You also need to better articulate the research and development and talk about like pharmaceutical uses of it and other uses of it. You also, yeah, LOC. You needed a lot more offense. You spent a lot of time on defensive arguments that, for instance, the prison's argument seemed to be defensive against an argument we weren't making.
Yeah.
Same with all of your spillover and semi-politics arguments, all of them lack a clear articulation of how that's going to happen. You also were kind of playing a dangerous game saying scroll solves decrim is inevitable, and it's really bad. That became more of a problem than the MO when you were going for both of them. You say death is the impact that matters the most, but then you don't impact all your scenarios after death. Like school dropouts. See why that's a bit of a problem? Also, let's talk about what that homeless data says. So I'm actually doing economic analysis again. So what that data says is not that there's a 30% increase in homelessness for people being stoned all the time and losing their jobs. It's a lot of it deals with migration, actually. People moving to Colorado to get access to legal weed. Also, most of those statistics also include anyone who moved here because of more generous health programs. So that statistic is kind of problematic for a few reasons. Also, your black market arguments don't make any sense. It's really hard to talk about how terrible the black market is when they're advocating legalization. It's very difficult, and I don't think you explained nearly well enough why there'd still be a black market.
Well, no, do you remember that lecture that was right after yours at the cannabis thing where the guy was talking about like differences in black markets compared to now? Did I articulate it wrong?
I mean, yes, you were more like to be these mini black markets, but even what he's talking about weren't all that bad, or like there were people basically who had medical cards selling stuff to people who didn't have medical cards, right? I didn't, one, that's not clearly articulated why that's that big of a deal, right? Two, I didn't know what you were talking about. I kind of guessed you were talking about that.
Yeah,
But I didn't really
remember what.
But it wasn't clearly articulated.
Right. And that was
Also, I don't know why that's inherently worse than the black markets that exist in other places. What?
I'm shutting this off.
Okay.